I'm Terry Saka, Chief Strategist of the Wealth Transfer, and today we're going to talk about gold, silver, but the gold and silver that's leaving the West and going to the East. You don't think you need to know? Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, here we go. We talked about the gold last week leaving our vault systems and heading to the east. Is that a big deal? Well, of course it is. In the fiat world, they want you to believe that the fiat world is all there is. And take a look at Bitcoin just as a kind of an offshoot here. Bitcoin is the encryptive currencies, right? The cryptocurrencies. And it's such a favorable, such a cool thing, right? It's up to $2,700. Think about that for a moment, by the way. Why is it up so high? Well, the world's telling you something. And gold is paramount. Now, folks, don't let them don't let them tell you for a minute that gold and silver really don't matter. If it didn't, why is the world so interested in it? Why are we shipping so much of our gold and silver over to the East? And why is the East hoarding and storing? I got to tell you, they brought China in as reserve currency in the IMF, and it's a matter of time. And even some of the biggest professionals will say China only has a few thousand, but one day they're going to match us, then they're going to come out, and here we go. I'm going to contend China's going to have more than America, Europe, probably the IMF combined. If you just understood some of the things I know on refining and global mining and exporting and importing, you'd understand where I'm coming from with that point. But I want to show this real quick. Now, this is a China entrusted loan. What I really just want to get off this more than anything else is the China entrusted loan graph. Check it out. It's back in 2008. If you notice the red line, the little blip there in 2008 is just where cash flow and loans and distribution of equity and liquidity and all that kind of took a dip. Well, no kidding in 2008, right? Well, in 2008, if it took a dip, what happened after that? Right, we printed $15 trillion in new currencies. We added $150 trillion in new debt globally. And that's what you see the big green mountain heading over to the right end of the chart. Now, what's more fascinating to me more than ever, remember a few weeks ago, we outlined that the spring or fall of 2015 did have an event. It was a multi-hundred billion dollar derivative blip. And remember, if you think a derivative is not important, ask the 5 top banks in the United States. They all hold a minimum of $50 trillion in derivatives. And we'll put it this way, in 2008, the derivatives that were going south was AIG. It was only a couple trillion in derivatives that were going to go zero, and that was going to cascade the global economy. Just 2 trillion, mind you, maybe it was 3, but 2. And we have about 650 trillion now globally in derivatives. So that just gives you an idea of the smoke and mirror nature of what we're seeing. But in this chart, I found it interesting because we have finally, now currently, have seen China loan origination dip into the red. That's not by accident, and that is a foretelling thought. So we're going to get into this graphing from Shanghai to Russia. And these are really detailed graphs. So if you want to really check it out, stand up and look at it because this is exciting to see this. Now, from the Shanghai Gold Exchange, Shanghai is the epicenter for the Chinese gold and silver market. Now, different from Shanghai to which we would call the London LBMA or the Chicago and the COMEX, and that's where the Chicago, you guys really do have some cool stuff here from that point, controlling the commodities and such. That's just wonderful in the market system. But here's the problem. That COMEX doesn't have any gold and silver. So get ready for that, what would you call the storming the banks, or how does that work? But in the Shanghai Gold Exchange now, look at the chart going back all the way from 2008 when the market collapsed all the way till today. You notice what's happened? That gold line going up, that graph rising like that, that's actually redemption. That's taking gold out of the Shanghai Exchange. Now, the difference between Shanghai, LBMA, and Chicago, let's just stay with Chicago for that matter, because that's the USA. Chicago sells the futures contract for gold and silver, which the Shanghai does. It's actually the futures exchange. In the futures market, it's where the physical price is supposed to be discovered, and it's where the physical product exchanges hands. It was designed to be a result for protecting the end user or the end producer, whether it be a farmer or a manufacturer. But the difference is, in America, 95% probably of futures contracts, they don't settle out and take the physical home. They settle out in cash. I think, listen to that for a second, because that's important. They settle out in cash. So what have we done? We've shipped all of our gold and silver to the East. They're taking it. We're not carrying, but they're taking it. And there's going to be a reason you're going to find in the future of why that is so vital to understand why they're interested in it and we're not. And it's not that we get it. And I hate to say this, but I think we're one of the only ones left in the world that actually believe us. So Shanghai Gold is coming out in redemption. And what does that really mean? Instead of settling it in cash, Chinese are taking the physical gold and silver away from the exchange. And where is it going? Their basements. They're going to the vaults, and they're storing it up. Why are we not storing it up? So the next one is going to be the China gold demand. Now, obviously, if they're taking it out, there's a big demand, right? It's not just in the governmental or financial or money management area. It's actually in the people. Now, if China has 1.2 plus billion people and we have just a little over 300 million, that's a big economy. And I know the world is basically relying on the fact that China is going to build like a self-sufficient, cash moving, circulating type of economy, self-feeding economy like America has been. So let's look at this one here, which is the China gold demand. Now, in the China gold demand, you're going to find this very interesting. You have your green and you have your red. Now, green is India, and in the red, it's China. The people, it's the people's China, and the reserves. And then there's a little extra aggregate in that. I won't get into that one now. But just notice the escalation from the 2008 collapse up. Now, everything stems from the 2008. There was a reckoning in 2008 that most of us know, but I don't think we understand the actual impact and the depth of how it tore apart at the fabric of not just our structure, but our power control and our dollar dominance. That gold demand has exploded in China. Everything they mine, they keep, and they will take every ounce that's around the world. In America, in Chicago, if just 10% of those gold or silver contracts stood for physical delivery, you know what would happen? Default. The exchange would default. Now, the only argument they can have is gold and silver don't matter. It's not a big deal. They're just kind of this investment. Folks, gold and silver is our money. Article 1, Section 8, grains of silver. It's our money. Always has been. I know the manipulated derivative control of the pricing is there, fine. For we in the kingdom, it's okay for now. It allows us to accumulate. So what I want to do before we jump into this break, well, let me tell you what, let's do this first. Before I go into the break here, because I want to spin off to the Russian angle. Remember, the Russians have pretty much gotten rid of all their U.S. treasuries by now, and they're the pivot in the Middle East for the destruction of the petrodollar and the dominance of the dollar reserve. Hence why you've had such a major movement on both sides of the aisle, really more one side than the other, but they want to go to war with Russia, don't they? Wasn't that like a big argument even for the last year and a half? Russia, this terrible Russia, this terrible Russia. Folks, if you were Russia, you'd be doing the same thing. Trust me. We're doing it to the world. It's like somehow we don't hack the world. What, are you kidding me? We took out a Ukrainian president, and we're not hacking the world. So let's take a quick break. I want to pivot over to Russia, and I think you'll find this very interesting. Be right back.
Terrorism, a volatile stock market, rising food costs, natural disasters. Every day our economy is at risk, but your assets should not be. Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked so hard to gain. Whether you have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, our accredited asset management specialists are here to support you. Call now and we'll send you urgent information regarding changes to the dollar and challenges to our economy that you need to be prepared for. Learn how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA. We can even arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or send it directly to your home. Do not delay. Call 888-747-3309 or register online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com today. Invest in precious metals and create security in your future today. Call now.
Welcome back. Now, we talk about China, we talk about the United States gold, but we're now mentioning Russia. Now, pivot Russia. As I said before, Russia has sold predominantly all their treasuries. They've been setting up for a confrontation because if you look at, which we showed maybe about a year ago at Wealth Transfer, we showed a NATO map of Europe. And if you looked at the map, you would see almost like a catcher's glove of NATO bases surrounding Russia. Now, folks, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out. If you're Russia and you have all these military bases surrounding you like a catcher's glove, aren't you going to get a little concerned or maybe prep up and be defensive? Absolutely. And I really believe this is purely my theory, and most of the stuff I'm data back, but I just want you to know, I have just an inkling. The war is predominantly, number one, because they're trying to take down our dominance. Two, it's because they know if they don't, they need, let's just say, a distraction. Does that make sense? They need a fall guy. They know the economy is getting ready to do an actual reckoning. And if that reckoning takes place, who's going to get blamed? As I said, the gold and silver can't be redeemed in the COMEX. If more than 10% did, we would default. Who would we blame, right? So knowing we have this financial reckoning coming, what we really need to do is find a fall guy. Hence Russia, North Korea. If we go to war, I will not be surprised, as that is the distraction, and not just distraction. That's what we will use to blame for the economic collapse. And I'm not into the word collapse. It's really more of a reset. It's more of kind of a rebalancing globally, especially since China has been rising. But look at this in the Russian central bank. Now, these are the Russian central bank gold reserves. Now, if you've noticed, which probably shouldn't be too obvious, right? Since 2006 to 8 till now, look at the increase, right? They've been selling out the treasuries and buying into gold. Now, they don't own a tremendous amount of gold, but they're safe, and that's a really big deal. So if the pivot of Russia, the alliance, I actually called this after they gave the Iranians all the money. I said, look at this trilateral. You have Iran, you have Russia, and you have China now coming together. I think a lot of people underestimated the fact that Russia and China became friends because during the whole last maybe 8 or 9 years, as they were coming together, most looked at them as enemies. They're never going to figure it out, right? They go to do a $400+ billion energy deal, and they were doing it in the American dollar. Problem is, we go and put sanctions on Russia right in the middle of this. Well, I mean, you're basically poking a bear or a wolverine, right? We go to put sanctions on Russia. We think it's going to put pressure on them. So they do the deal with China finally after about 10 years. And instead of using the dollar, they agree to use their own currencies. Hence, bypass the petrodollar. So every time we seem to have pushed them, we have created the condition of what we're trying to present here to you. Interesting. Why would we push them into that decision? But we have. And here's my contention why. For all of us in the Midwest especially, what does that look like to you? Manufacturing jobs, right? I'm good old Detroit. Automobiles, drag racing, popping clutches, really manufacturing grit, nice paying jobs, overtime, good benefits. This chart shows manufacturing since, now this goes back really to the 1940s. After World War II, in all fairness, we're building bombers, so what do you think? But since the 1940s to now, look at that manufacturing in the United States. It's gone. We don't have the manufacturing. Detroit, heck, Ford. Now, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I heard Ford was building a plant in China to import back here. Well, what's that all about, right? There was a day in Detroit, if you drove a foreign car, they would flatten your tires. So the thing is, we're taking the jobs away, and I know it's because this doesn't buy you the same. You see, this is the problem here. It doesn't buy what it used to. So in order to pay a proper wage, we're going to have to raise prices on the product. So they ship the job overseas. This chart is astonishing to me because this is we the people. This is the middle class. This was the nice $50, $75, $100,000 labor jobs, manufacturing jobs that fed our families and circulated our currencies. This was America. And we got rid of it, and it's never coming back. I'm not trying to be the negative guy, but let me just tell you, it can't come back because of labor costs and the lack of the purchasing power of the dollar alone. So just keep that in mind. I also want to get into showing you on not just from manufacturing, but labor. Now, we all know this. In the last 8 years, what has happened to employment? They tell you it's 4.4%, right? Not quite. There's 100 million not in the workforce, labor force, and that's because they ran out of the benefits and they just don't even try anymore. Now, this is able-bodied workers, 100 million of them. So it's not really 4% unemployment, it's more like 12 and probably higher towards 18, I would guess. You can go to Shadow Statistics and find out for yourself. But in the labor itself, check this thing out. This is the labor force participation rate, as well as with people in the labor force, not in the labor force, sorry. So the top part, participation rate, down on the bottom, not in. Is there a pattern? That's right. They're both dramatically decreasing. So it's impossible to say the unemployment is 4.4%. We all know because we're talking to our friends and family. It's not like we don't know. And if 87 to 90% of all jobs created since 2008, yeah, part-time. So is it really worth anything? No. Do we have higher unemployment? Of course. Are we marginalized in our salaries? Yes. Are we making increased salaries? No. This shows you we have never improved from the 2008 collapse. And it's not improving anytime soon because we're now getting ready to go through another cycle. So what I want to do is get into helping you understand that we've outrun, how does the Bible say? If you're a neighbor, like don't go out and shout out to your neighbor and talk to your neighbor too much or spend too much time with your neighbor. You know what that means? It's like a guest. Especially where I live, it's kind of hard to come. And if you come where I live, they have a tendency to want to stay for a couple of weeks. And I don't care who you are. You're at my house for a couple of weeks. There's probably going to be some problems, especially if you eat all my food. But what we want to illustrate is this has been taking its time. This is a lineage issue from not just 2008, but really in the 90s. But just from 2008, nothing has changed like you think it is. Now, the stock market is 21,000, Terry. What are you saying? Yeah, because we've been printing money and going into the markets. You think you're making money in the stock market. You are on paper, but if you compare that to the loss of buying power on the dollar and compared to the loss of where you were back in 2008, you'd probably contend to say you're not up as much as you think. And if you go back to 2008, silver, of course, has been up more than a few hundred%. So there's just really no comparison. But check out this one here. This is the U.S. wealth inequality. Now, you have to give it to them, and I agree 100% with those of the Bernie Sanders and the socialist world. That'll be the only time I will ever agree with a socialist. But they're right. If you look at this chart, the bottom 90% really since 1917, but let's go from the peak of 1987. Since the time frame of around 1987, the bottom 90% of our society, hence manufacturing, has decreased tremendously. I mean, we've gone from well over almost 40% down to 25% of amount of wealth we're accumulating. This is pretty interesting. But yet, since the same period, conveniently coming off the gold standard, the 0.1% have been increasing their wealth. And in the last 8 years, supposedly when we were supposed to be working for we the people, supposedly when we were supposed to be investing into our infrastructure, into our schools, and into our educational programs for the less fortunate, we spent $10 trillion supporting the banking system and the 0.1% because they were able to take out loans at literally no cost at all and then leverage it into the market at astronomical collateral and leveraged positions. So this chart really does show that there's an inequality, but here's the problem. Correct that it's an inequality. Correct that it is definitely the top elites taking advantage of we the people, hence the argument for socialism. 100% wrong on the solution. The problem is in the socialist world that talk this argument, they have a margin in the sand at $300,000-$400,000. Somehow you're rich, we want half your money, and that's just about all the remaining entrepreneurs we have left. So it's a really flawed argument, and there are definitely better solutions, but it is true. We need to be smarter with our money. They're smart with your money. They're smart using your money, and they're not paying you anything for it. So think about that for a minute. They're getting richer in the banking system, and they're using your money, and what are you getting? Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back, get into it more.
Terrorism, a volatile stock market, rising food costs, natural disasters. Every day our economy is at risk, but your assets should not be. Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked so hard to gain. Whether you have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, our accredited asset management specialists are here to support you. Call now and we'll send you urgent information regarding changes to the dollar and challenges to our economy that you need to be prepared for. Learn how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA. We can even arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or send it directly to your home. Do not delay. Call 888-747-3309 or register online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com today. Invest in precious metals and create security in your future today. Call now.
Welcome back. Now, as we were talking about the gold in China, our vaults, how they're empty, how we're shifting it to the east, how they have a tremendous interest in gold and silver and we do not. Now, I understand why. You can have how many college-educated people ask them about the gold standard, they don't know. Now, the rest of the world knows and they're benefiting from that. But here's the problem for us. Now, if you go to India, for instance, in India, you'll find that the people wear their retirement and their wealth. They'll wear that long gold chain, and even to the point where each link could be a gram in weight, and it's an actual monetary weight measurement. They store their wealth in precious metals, gold and silver. They've already been through fiat currency collapsing, wealth destruction, and you know. So they're into it. Now, why are we not into it? Why don't we? Now there are those, but why predominantly are the American people just not taking to the gold and silver, which, by the way, as we say, Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Congress has a right to coin money. Money was defined as grains of silver, you see? But why don't we know? Because they don't want you to know. So let's go take a look at a quick video. Now, mind you, I'm not here to embarrass anybody. But this is a phenomenal interview done on a street, and believe me, the people look pretty smart. Oh, well, as we would say, normal. But look at how they react to this offer. So take a look at this video. We'll be right back.
It's your lucky day today. You win a free 10-ounce silver bar, pure silver bullion, or a free Hershey's king-size chocolate bar.
Take this one.
You'll take the chocolate bar. Who needs a 10-ounce bar of silver? Right? No. Have a good day. It's your choice. A free 10-ounce bar of silver bullion or a free king-size Hershey bar.
I think I'll take the Hershey bar.
Go ahead. It's your lucky day. Just fresh out of the refrigerator.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who needs a 10-ounce bar of silver when you can have a good, delicious bar of chocolate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
You'd rather have the Hershey bar than the silver bar?
Yes, I would.
Oh, you would?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Hershey bar, you just can't eat the silver bar.
Yeah, that's right. You can't eat the silver. What are you going to do with a 10-ounce bar of silver, right? You know. Which one do you want?
enjoy the chocolate because I'm a girl and it's been a cranky day.
Okay, it's yours. Eat it quick because it's getting hot out here.
It's fine.
Now with that video, you're seeing, I know, and it's true. I know that sounds like it could, or looks like it could be staged. It was not staged. They truly didn't have a clue what a 10-ounce bar of silver could do for them. They took the chocolate bar. And I think around the time that video was done, if I recall, maybe it was around $24 an ounce for silver. They could have bought 240 chocolate bars with that silver after selling it, and yet they just took the one. Not very smart, huh? Well, I don't really blame them, although I do, but I don't really blame them because our system has stacked us away from understanding what true money is. They don't want you to know that storage of your wealth into the fiat fake system or the stock bond market system, they want you to think that's the way to go. They don't want you thinking this would be the way to go, because if you're in this, you're not in a bank where they can leverage you out and take advantage of you. Because remember this, in a bank, when you go put $1 in the bank, you have relinquished your rights to that dollar, meaning it's not yours. We don't believe this. Most of us don't know this. When you put $1 in the bank, you're giving the bank a loan. That's why they pay you that little paltry interest. You're giving them a loan. You're giving up your rights to your dollar. So when you think, well, that's my money in the bank. Well, no, it's not. You've actually given a loan to the bank. You've now registered yourself as what they call an unsecured creditor. So if the laws have been written, it was passed, Citibank wrote the law, they'll say not. But if you look at their draft to the real law, minus 10 words, miraculous, right? The law stated, and it was in a Defense Authorization Act, beautiful placement, who would reject that? The law said that if the derivative market implodes, which it's going to, when it implodes, the taxpayers are going to be on the hook to pay back the derivatives, and folks in bondage across the board. But keep this in mind, when that happens and the derivative market implodes, the entire fiat currency system and the buying power that it has disappears. So they know that the fiat system is in place. They know that silver and gold have tangible, real wealth. And I can't get into too much more of this. I really was going to go into a cool spot, and I can't go there. But the people in the rest of the world know the importance and the value of it. We in the United States have been everything but educated on what real money and real wealth is. And so we're going to get a little bit smoother on some of this. I'm realizing I'm jumping into some subject matter I've been talking about at Wealth Transfer for quite some time. And now that we're coming into some new markets, I really kind of wanted to reintroduce some of the conception of where it started and where it's going and why we're feeling some of the pain we're feeling. So, just kind of bear with me a little bit. You'll see it kind of tune up and tighten up down the road. But until then, until next week, may God bless each and every one of you. May wisdom, understanding, revelation, and may the light of Him guide your path. We'll see you then.